America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the ocean white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Order, home. Right? Come on. Everybody, please be seated. Well, welcome again. Thank you to the MTA Police Department and Color Guard, Pipes and Drums, as they do an awesome job every year for us. And they will be marching with us in the parade again this year, out in front of us as we stroll up Fifth Avenue. Every year I like to ask a question on what does it mean to be a veteran. To me, specifically, I'm going to answer this question this year. It's a life-altering decision that many of us here and out there have put ourselves on the line, put our lives on the line for a nation that we love. Today being the day after Election Day, everybody went out and performed their constitutional duties to vote for the next president of the United States. And as we stand here, it's a solemn duty that we don't take lightly. As a veteran, like I said, we support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So it doesn't matter who is in that seat, we will serve that person honorably, no matter if we like their decisions or not. It's who we are, and what we stand for, regardless of color, creed, sex, gender, or whatever else is out there. We support that individual. We support the American public, with the people. We were pushed overseas to serve other nations under our American flag. So that is something that we take very seriously. I can remember as an 18-year-old going to the recruiting office and signing on a dotted line that secured what my future was going to hold. So April 6th of 1993, I decided I was getting on a bus. Or actually, it was April 5th of 1993. I was sitting in the MEP station in Albany, New York, and getting ready to get on a bus to take me to the airport to fly to, I think we went to Charleston, South Carolina, to get on another bus to take how long it seemed like 2-day trip to Parris Island. The Marines in here will understand if they went to Parris Island what that trip is like. You're in an open air, it's a bus that you're in there with probably 65 other individuals that have no idea what's going to happen in the next 2 hours as we roll into that depot. And you roll into the Parris Island depot, they drive you around this depot, I think another 2 days. I think it seems like that you're driving around in the dark. 2 o'clock in the morning, they pull up in front of a building, and then there's this crazy individual that jumps up in the middle of a bus and starts screaming and yelling at you to get off a bus and drop everything you had and leave the life that you just had the day before behind, because now your life has changed and you're in the hands of this individual who is now your mother, your father, your uncle, your brother, whoever it is. And we have one of those individuals sitting here now, Carlos, who will speak in a little bit, who was a drill instructor and can attest on probably on both ends. You know, he was a recruit and he was a drill instructor, so he had the fun on both sides. But as our careers progressed, you know, I retired from the Marine Corps in 2015 and came to transit a couple months later. And those 22 years that I served the nation, it was the best time of my life, I can honestly say, and I miss it every day. So days like this, when we get to come here and celebrate the veterans that are out there, whether you served 4 years, 2 years, 20 years, 30 years, it doesn't matter, you're still a veteran. And the individuals that we invited to speak from the VA will tell you the benefits that you will receive as a veteran. So if you are not receiving those benefits, it's something that you earned, and you should take advantage of those benefits that are out there. So we're going to move on to our next thing. We do not have a chaplain to say our opening prayer. We've listened to our pipes and drums, and so our first speaker is going to be Carlos Ascenso, who's the vice chair of our organization, and he's going to tell you the history of Veterans Day.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carlos Asensio. I am a Marine Corps veteran, as Craig mentioned, and currently working for the Department of Buses at Michael J. Cool Bus Depot. I'm going to quickly go over the history of Veterans Day and a little bit additional with that. So it all started on the 11th hour of the 11th day on the 11th month in 1918. It was the end of World War I. It was initially called Armistice Day to commemorate the end of this war, and it was officially passed by Congress in 1926. Realizing that peace was equally preserved by veterans of World War II in Korea, Congress decided to make the day an occasion to honor all those who have served in America. In 1954, President D. Eisenhower signed a bill proclaiming November 11th as Veterans Day. Since then, Veterans Day become to acknowledge all veterans who have served, not just those who have been at war. The heroism that has been demonstrated time and again by veterans from the American Revolutionary to the global war on terrorism is far none, and should not be unnoticed by those who enjoy the securities that their sacrifices have provided. There are many stories of young men and women doing heroic deeds, but I will go over one at this moment. This individual is Marine Corps Lance Corporal Kyle Carpenter, who was born in Jackson, Mississippi on October 17, 1987. He enlisted in the Marine Corps at the age of 19, like many of us, very young, right out of high school. On November 21, 2010, at the age of 21, Lance Corporal Carpenter and another Marine were manning a rooftop security post in defense of a village in Helmand Province. The enemy initiated a daylight attack with hand grenades, one of which landed inside the sandbag position. Without hesitation and with complete disregard for his own safety, Lance Corporal Carpenter moved toward that grenade in an attempt to shield his fellow Marine. He took the entire impact from that grenade once it detonated. His body absorbed the entire blast, severely wounding him. His jaw, his right arm, shattered. Right eye, lost. He has undergone dozens of surgeries, and it wasn't until 2013 he was medically cleared and retired as a corporal. On June 2019, Carpenter received the Medal of Honor in a ceremony at the White House. He is the 8th living recipient to be awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions in Afghanistan. The joy, he said, comes from recognition of us doing our jobs as Marines on distant battlefields, but it's also encountered by the constant reminder of those battle buddies that we lost. Our Marines, our friends. This attitude is not hard to find amongst living Marines and veterans. They will never forget the sacrifice of their friends and the families who have to cope with the embrace of their loved ones. Our debt to these heroes can never be repaid, but our gratitude and respect must last forever. For many veterans, our nation was important enough to endure long separations from families, missed birth of children, freeze in sub-zero temperatures, bake in wild jungles, lose limbs, and far often lose lives. Military spouses have had to endure career interruptions, frequent change of addresses, and disappropriate share of paternal responsibilities. The children often had to deal with changes in school, separation from family, and hardest of all, the uncertainty of whether their parents would return from another combat deployment. Warriors need advocates, and that is why groups like ours exist. We are here to serve veterans and their families and our communities. Veterans need each other, but more importantly, our community needs veterans. You cannot fight a war without veterans, while the utopian idea of a society without war is appealing. Let us not forget that wars have liberated slaves, stopped genocide, and toppled terrorists. As we look overseas, there are dangerous and committed groups of fanatics that want to harm us. Those who defend us from our enemies must be supported. Whether their service was in Baghdad or Beirut, we need to serve veterans as well as they served us, even when the guns have temporarily stopped firing. Homelessness and suicide are issues that affect veterans disproportionately. According to the VA, there are 60,000 veterans sleeping on the streets and 1.4 million veterans at risk of homelessness. 22 veterans take their lives each day, many due to their battles with PTSD. We can do better. We must do better. Companies have seen great success when hiring veterans. When members of the Guard and Reserve deploy, it is America's responsibility to ensure their civilian careers do not suffer. Throughout the years, MTA has shown great support for these individuals. They've also assisted with hiring veterans, providing support, giving us opportunities such as this to commemorate us. So thank you. Historians have said that Dwight Eisenhower was prouder of being a soldier than he was of being a president. And while relatively few veterans each reach the rank of general, pride in one's military service is a bond shared by nearly all who have served. The pride is on display on every obituary page in the country, where military service, regardless of how many decades have passed or subsequent achievements reached, is mentioned during their death notice. As millions of men and women who have worn the cloth of our military, all veterans share a common bond. We all raised our right hand and solemnly swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. No matter if you served 2 years or 42 years, all veterans sacrifice something to serve for their country, and if called upon, to lay down their lives to defend it. Every veteran has a story to tell. However, those who have served only make up 1% of our nation's population. And with the world's nation's longest war coming to an end and the veteran population dwindling, it's important to remember why we have Veterans Day in the first place. Veterans Day is an opportunity to publicly commemorate the contributions of living veterans and show appreciation towards them. But beyond the free meals, the discounts, the tributes, the platitudes given to veterans on this day, there's also an opportunity to truly show them your appreciation. If you find a veteran, ask them a few questions. Ask them when they served. Ask them where they served, what branch, what they did, what was it like to serve, and finally, why did they serve? Listen to their stories, and you will truly find out and know about the service that you are thanking them for. It will make all the difference to them and might give you a greater appreciation for our veterans and the freedoms we endure today. Veterans have given us freedom, security, and the greatest nation on earth. It is impossible to put a price on that. We must remember them, we must appreciate them. God bless you all for being here. God bless our veterans, and God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. As always, very powerful. Our next speaker is going to be Dr. Jen Friedberg. She is the Women's Veteran Coordinator at the New York City Veterans Affairs Office, right? I'll let you explain exactly what it is.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me. My name is Jennifer Friedberg. I'm the Women Veteran Program Manager at VA New York Harbor Healthcare System. So my colleagues and I are going to be representing that healthcare system. If you're not familiar with it, we are several different campuses. We're the Manhattan VA, the Brooklyn VA, the St. Albans VA, which is in Queens, and we have 2 smaller clinics called CBOX located in Staten Island and Harlem. So I'm going to begin by telling you a little bit about the Women's Health Program and what services we have available for women veterans. So we do offer comprehensive women's health care at all of our facilities that I just mentioned. That includes comprehensive primary care from providers who have training specifically in working with women veterans. They offer general primary care as well as specific preventive health care geared towards women, such as Pap smears, breast exams, things like that. We also offer mammography at our Brooklyn and Manhattan locations. We offer a full range of gynecological services at our Brooklyn, Manhattan, and St. Albans locations, including menopause management, contraception, as well as procedures in our clinics and surgeries, gynecological surgeries, including minimally invasive surgery, which uses a robot, which is kind of cool, and we've newly started doing that in Brooklyn and Manhattan. We also have fertility treatment, as well as maternity care, and we have dedicated women's health clinics in our Brooklyn, Manhattan, and St. Albans locations. We also have emergency care, including specific women's treatment rooms in our Manhattan and Brooklyn ERs. We have various mental health services geared towards women, including treatment for individual and family and couples therapy that we can connect people to. We have military sexual trauma coordinators at all of our locations who can work with patients who are dealing with issues like that. And we have specific groups for women veterans at all of our locations. So if you do have any questions, I'll be here afterwards. If you have time to stop by, we can give you a little bit more information about that. And do you want me to introduce my next colleague? Okay, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ilana Vetrano, who is the Medical Foster Home Coordinator at New York Harbor. Thank you all for your service, and thank you for listening.
Hi, good afternoon. Yes, again, I'm Ilana. So in my present role, I am the Medical Foster Home Program Coordinator through New York Harbor. So again, New York Harbor Healthcare System covers New York City area except for Bronx. So if you are a Bronx resident or in that area, please do register with Bronx VA. My prior role, and I'll speak, I guess, on that as well, just to kind of give you a broader sense of different programs available for veterans. I used to be the geriatric primary care social worker, so outpatient medicine. So I guess just to start in terms of care received through VA, I would highly recommend that anyone who is a veteran to please go through eligibility through VA, whether again be through New York Harbor or through Bronx, just to see if you are eligible for care through VA. Certainly there's a plethora of services that you would never even expect that would come up. So certainly doing that, enrolling through eligibility is a great first step. And part of that would be enrolling in primary care services. And really through primary care, which again is my former practice. I did that for about 10 years. It's amazing the types of services that you can be connected to. I guess just to speak in terms of more long-term care planning, and medical care. Through primary care, they can refer for any specialty services. So certainly something I've seen to be a great benefit is patients being enrolled and referred for physical medicine rehab services. So through that, you can get canes, walkers, hospital beds, really pretty significant in-home supportive devices and services. So it's a really big one that certainly could be a huge cost for veterans and non-veterans alike. Also just in terms of kind of care options in the home, so whether it be need for home health aid services, there's adult day programs. We have also VDC is a newer program, so you can actually have someone be assigned to be your caregiver and have the VA assist with coverage for those costs. Also, if you're needing more institutional level care, there are nursing homes, nursing home level care, institutional care that would be available for some veterans through the New York State Veterans Homes, as well as through CLCs, which are community living centers, which are attached to VA hospitals. The closest one to us here would be the St. Albans campus. They have one that just happens to be on that same campus, as well as the state home on that same campus. To speak a bit about my program directly, so another kind of option for long-term care or really to receive an alternative to institutional care is medical foster homes. So it is a growing program. I'm hoping to expand throughout the New York City area. So again, I'm covering New York City besides Bronx. So if you have anyone who's interested, whether it be a veteran or a potential caregiver, to give some background on the program, essentially medical foster homes are again, alternative to institutional care, where members of the community, whether it be veterans, non-veterans, are opening their hearts and homes to veterans to have them live with them and provide them care. So really like a wonderful family type model of care for those who really cannot live independently, whether it be related to medical, mental health, various conditions that may come up that really limit their ability to function independently without supervision or care assistance. So our homes, they're private homes in the community where that caregiver is providing care to 1 to 3 veterans in that setting. Right now I have a home in Far Rockaway where we have 2 veterans placed with Miss Zoe Mimo, a lovely individual who has her 2 adult sons there, and we have 2 veterans placed there, and they've been there now for close to 10 years. And really love it there. It's a supportive living environment. They're getting assistance with their personal care as needed, that supervision. They essentially pay like a room and board fee, and that individual is providing that care assistance as well as meals and things like that as well. Otherwise, in terms of that program, right now it is private pay, but there is a program or a act that's put into place, Cleveland Dole Act, you might have heard, that's been rolling out very slowly. But essentially, our veterans who have significant service-connected disability, so that 70 to 100% rating, would be eligible to have that paid for. So that's rolling out. And just to kind of remark on that as well, veterans who are in that criteria presently, the 70 to 100% service-connected disability, potentially, if they meet medical need, are eligible for nursing home placement through VA. So again, something to keep in mind for those who are needing that higher level of care. So, again, part of my program is not only am I recruiting veterans who are in need of this type of placement for medical foster home, but also caregivers, individuals, whether, again, be veterans, not veterans alike, who really do want to, continue their service to veterans and provide that support and really welcome them as a member of their family. If there's any questions about long-term care planning or my program specifically, I'm happy to answer those questions as well if that's something we have the time to do. All right. Thank you so much for your time. And again, I will be in the back. I have flyers and information too if anyone has any additional questions. Thank you.
Okay, our last speaker from the VA will be Sebastian.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. So thank you, Craig, for inviting us, and Carlos for having us today in this beautiful location for this event. So again, my name is Sebastian Shaw. I am with the Suicide Prevention Program at New York Harbor VA. And I'll just give you a little brief overview of suicide prevention. VA has been doing suicide prevention formally since 2007. So that's when they recognized the need to have a team at every VA medical center specifically looking at suicide prevention. What that had looked like up until a few years ago was clinical. So psychologists, clinical social workers, I'm a clinical social worker by trade, and anybody who walked in the doors could be assessed for suicide if they were found to be at risk. They were followed more closely by the team, and the suicide prevention team was sort of embedded all throughout the hospital, right? Not just in mental health, but making sure the folks who go to primary care are supported. Because one thing we know about suicide is it's not just the culmination of mental health, right? Mental health is certainly a factor. It's a huge factor, but there's a lot of folks who die by suicide every year who don't necessarily have a mental health condition or diagnosis. In 2018, as part of the Mission Act, VA recognized that they have to expand suicide prevention beyond just the clinical side of it. You've heard a few folks mention now there's a lot of veterans who don't come into VA, right? And I'm sure that a lot of your own colleagues, right? People have their own health care. People have their own reasons for not going to VA. So actually only about 50% of eligible veterans get any kind of benefits from VA, and that includes tuition, service connection, and fewer than that get their health care from VA. So we know from the data that the veterans who come to VA have better outcomes for suicide. But we also know that there's a lot of veterans who don't come to VA. So as part of that 2018 Mission Act, they said we need to do some suicide prevention outside of our walls as well. And they created community engagement and partnerships, which is what I do. And New York Harbor was the second wave across the country to implement this position. So what we do is we're out in the community, we're presenting, we're doing education, we're doing training, we're working with coalitions and forming new coalitions around suicide prevention, largely to reach those veterans who don't come in to VA. I'll just tell a little bit of data. So the suicide rates in our country have been increasing for about the last 30 years. We had a slight decline during COVID, and they've gone back up again. The way I like to say it is that suicide is a national issue that disproportionately affects veterans. Right? It's not a veteran exclusive issue, but it does impact veterans more. And it's very comparable to PTSD and where we were sort of as a culture looking at PTSD 20 years ago. Folks weren't really talking about it. It was identified as something that disproportionately affected veterans, and now it's more common. There's less stigma around it. It's more common to discuss it. And hopefully suicide is kind of going in that same direction. If you look at the little brochure from the SAR folks, SAR flag folks, it's got some nice information on how you can help to reduce that stigma just by using your own language. So as far as data goes, what we know from our last annual report, which looks at 2021, there is a lag, right, in time. So any good suicide data is going to be a year or two old, right? Be very wary if you're out there and somebody tells you, you know, the Yankees lost, suicide rates are up, right? You're not going to see those kind of quick turnaround on data. It's very hard to get large statistics on suicide and then to layer into that who are veterans and who are not. CDC releases their data with about a year lag, and the VA is about a year behind that to make sure we're as accurate as we can. So the last report from 2021 highlights a few heavily impacted groups of veterans, and I just want to mention them here. The first one is women veterans, and you just heard about our Women Veterans Program. But the last, in our last group of data showed a 24.1% increase in the suicide rate for women veterans. American Indian, Alaskan Native veterans saw an 8% increase at a rate of 46.3 per 100,000. Homeless veterans, which were mentioned, also have a much higher rate of suicide at about 113 per 100,000. Priority 5 veterans. So for those of you who don't work in VA eligibility, might not know what that is. A Priority 5 veteran, according to the VA, is non-service connected and Medicaid eligible, right? And that group of veterans saw a almost 10% increase in suicide rates from 2020 to 2021. And lastly, justice-involved veterans with a suicide rate of 151 per 100,000, which was a 10% increase over the 2020 data, right? So very high-risk area. This data is all publicly available. If you're interested, you can just go online and search out the VA Annual Suicide Prevention Report. I just wanted to highlight a little bit of it. And now the natural follow-up question to that is like, great, what are you doing, right? You can come out here and tell me that these individuals in these demographics are at higher risk, right? So we have 6 priority areas in our community suicide prevention initiative. The first is screening for veteran status, right? There was a RAND report, maybe you all are familiar with it, good research that showed that non-VA medical providers, only about 8% of them have any military cultural competence training, right? So if you're a veteran and you're going to a non-VA provider, great, that's good for you, but they might be missing something, right? And I'll just share a personal example quickly. My father's a Vietnam veteran, never went to the VA. He had his union insurance. He didn't have a need for it. During COVID, VA had vaccines before community providers. I said, Pops, you got to go get your vaccine. You might as well, right? You'll have it before everyone else. You can get back to your routine. So he went for his initial appointment, and he told them, he was a Vietnam veteran, whatever he told them, and they said, oh, were you in country? And that question alone blew his mind, right? He's like a full advocate of the VA, right? And so just that little bit of cultural competence and buy-in can really make a big difference. With the PACT Act, with Service Connection, people knowing, if you come in with an injury or an ailment, you might be eligible for more benefits. So screening for veteran status, screening for suicide. Obviously, I'm up here talking about suicide. Folks who go in to see their providers in these non-mental health settings, screening for suicide is critical. So what we do is support our community partners in making sure that their staff are trained and they're all comfortable in talking about suicide, and not just for medical and mental health providers. We'll come out and train you guys. We'll train MTA folks. So if you see somebody out in your day-to-day life, you'll feel a little more comfortable talking about suicide with them. Our next priority area is improving care transitions. Right? You spoke about retirement and coming to transit. That's one example of a transition, a life transition that puts people at higher risk. Increasing connectedness. Right? This is a big one, sort of in the zeitgeist right now. Anything that gets folks together. Right? Doing events like this, getting people into the room, social activities, anything that brings people together and reduces isolation is suicide prevention. Promoting lethal means safety is our 5th priority area. Before you leave, if you want to check out the info that we have in the back, what you'll see also are some firearm locks. We have these red wire firearm locks, and we distribute those for free, no questions asked. You don't have to just give your name or anything. You need a firearm lock for a veteran, for yourself. VA will provide those. At New York Harbor, we also provide medication lock boxes and medication lock bags, which can also store small firearms or ammunition as well. So all those things to reduce lethal means access when people are at high risk. And then lastly, improving safety planning for folks who are at higher risk for suicide. So that's what we're doing on the community side of it. I mentioned what we're doing in-house with the acute clinical stuff. So this is all very brief, but that's kind of how we are approaching a full public health model for suicide prevention. And my last thing that I'll say here is that we're available. We can come out and we can do trainings. We can come out and do outreach. You don't have to bring 30 veterans to a room. If we can get some literature, some information out to a place where people come through, if we can get some training out to people who interface with veterans, then it's worth our while to come out. So please reach out, and it can be any domain, right? If you're part of a church group or a faith organization outside of MTA and you want to reach out, whatever it might be, we're available to come and support you. So as my colleague said, I'll also be available for questions, and there's literature in the back. And once again, thank you so much for having me at this event.
Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you all. Again, if you guys need more information, I'll put some of the information up online. I'll send it out to our group, and then you can always find it on va.gov. Go register for your Veterans ID card, register with the VA. Take advantage of the benefits that are out there. If you have not gone out there to look for your service-connected disabilities and ratings, please do so. I mean, the government owes you for what you did for them, so take advantage of what they're willing to give back to you. So, our next speaker is Joseph. I'm just going to say Cedeno. I'm not going to fill out the rest of it. I'll let him introduce himself, but he is going to be speaking about the Military Order of the Purple Heart here in New York City and what that organization is. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to begin to thank Craig and everybody over here for coming today, for allowing us to come over here and talk about the organization. My name is Commander Joseph Cedeno. I am the chapter commander for New York City's Military Order of the Purple Heart. It's actually one of the oldest chapters in the nation as of now. Just going to give you real briefly also, I'm also a Special Inspector Supervisor with the Eagle Team with New York City Transit. And I'm also the trainer. Wear many hats. The Military Order of the Purple Heart, Chapter 3, Colón Rivera Memorial in New York City. In the early 1990s, the late Captain Antonio Rivera Jr. reactivated the Chapter 3. And he petitioned to have it named or renamed in honor of two Puerto Rican heroes. Specialist Hector Santiago Colón, Vietnam veteran, who was posthumously presented with the highest military decoration of the United States of America, the Medal of Honor. He paid the ultimate sacrifice to save the lives of his fellow comrades. And Captain Manuel Rivera Jr., who was the first serviceman and Puerto Rican descent to die during the operation in Desert Shield. In memory, Captain Antonio Rivera Jr. continued our chapter's mission to honor our Purple Heart recipients. And not just our Purple Heart recipients, but also be committed in supporting them by showing compassion, spiritual guidance, and with the help of donors, supply them and their families with clothing and basic everyday needs, especially during the holiday season. Our oath that we, as veterans, as servicemen and women, have given, it doesn't stop after we get out. It continues. That's what makes veterans, servicemen and women, very special and unique. Our oath is to serve has no expiration. We continue to serve our communities, cities, towns, and country. Even years after we put down our arms, we continue the mission of never leaving a fellow brother behind. So the Military Order of the Purple Heart continues that mission through clothing drives, food pantries, and help also with the VA gathering information for them. We did have an office at 23rd Street, but Hurricane Sandy kind of took us out of there. We're coming back. We will help those warriors that are less fortunate at veterans' homeless shelters throughout New York City. We collect clothes. We go out there, very small group, and we'll distribute thousands of articles of clothing. We'll collaborate with different organizations. We'll collaborate with the city, with the mayor's office. It is my honor to be here today to represent my chapter that I hold, and a great respect to my brothers and sisters who have served honorably, as I have. so that we can continue to enjoy the freedoms in our beloved country, the United States of America. Our chapter is also integral to making April 26th a Korean War Veterans Day, since they did not have a date for themselves. So now that is being passed. It is sitting in the president's office to be signed. But thank you very much, every single one of you. Thank you, Craig. God bless you. God bless America. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. We have one late addition. He's not up on the board here, but everybody knows that Manny was the founder of this organization that we have here once they brought us all into all the Infinity groups and stood us up. So when we were just still part of Transit before we were taken over by the entire MTA, and we're able to include everybody within the MTA with subways and buses and trains and bridges and tunnels and all the organizations that encompass the MTA. So Manny, he's representing now as a retiree from Transit, the SAR Flag Initiative, and he'll come up and speak a little bit about that. So Manny.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Greg, and the organization for inviting me. Yes, I was the founder of it, and actually, Craig was my first vice chair, and I'm so glad that the organization is still, it's still, it's still doing its mission, basically, of honoring our veterans here at Transit, and collaborating still, with the VA and whatnot. Something that we started when we first started this. Yes, I was a 24-year-old. I'm an Army veteran, and I retired from the TA 2021 as a transportation planner. 24 years Department of Buses, actually. So, actually, I guess in the last 2 years of my service here, Kevin Hertel. He's a U.S. Army Air Force veteran, and he was also a former subway car inspector at the 207th Street Yards, So he came, and I worked at Kingsbridge Depot. That was my assignment. So he came over and said, Manny, I'm starting this new organization called the SAR Flag Corporation. His cousin died by suicide, and he talked about how people still have a stigma, about suicide, and uncomfortable about talking about it, and the idea that and part of it is because we as veterans, in our service grow up with the warrior culture mentality, that we don't want to admit that that we're the weakest link of the chain. We think we're the weakest link of the chain. It's not us to do that, but but it's a growing problem, suicide. And what he did was he designed a flag. This flag, and in fact, most of you, if you have the handout, I'll read to you our mission statement, because it basically explains who we are, and what we do. And I didn't bring my glasses, so I'm hoping I can read this without some squint. Okay. This is the Suicide Awareness and Remembrance Flag, or the SAR flag, spoken as SAR, created by U.S. Air Force veteran Kevin Hertel. The SAR flag was created to honor and forever remember the veterans and military lost to suicide, as well as to honor, respect, and unite their families. The SAR flag also stands as a tangible symbol of hope to living veterans and military, to show that we care as a nation, to remind them that stigma-free treatment is available, and to know that they are not alone. Our mission is to break the stigma of mental health, suicide, and seeking treatment within our warrior culture to facilitate suicide prevention. We aim to have the SAR flag officially recognized by Congress, similar to the POW flag, to elevate this issue in the public's consciousness and to raise our continued awareness. Once the SAR flag is approved by Congress, it will stand as our nation's commitment to recognize and remember those veterans and military who died by suicide. Further work on prevention to end veteran and military suicide. And in the back, okay, you turn to the back, we talk about, okay, what is it that we need from you? What's the ask here? Okay, and we need your support to help us to help them. And read along, the stigma of suicide only perpetuates it. Please don't use phrases like committed suicide or kill themselves. This is inaccurate, is extremely insensitive to the surviving family, and contributes, to the stigma associated with suicide. They did not commit a crime. Instead, use the phrase "died by suicide." Suicide isn't the individual's fault. When someone dies by suicide, they succumb to a mental ailment similar to a way in which someone can die, from a physical illness. Although, as the gentleman, pointed out, that's right. Not all, not all suicide is necessarily tied to, to mental illness. Any number of extraordinary circumstances can happen, can compel people to do that. So, but anyway, but in our case, again, and the answer is simple. If you battle buddy, your wingman, your teammate is struggling, escort them to a health care provider, chaplain, or call the Military and Veterans Crisis Lifeline, 988, which is the National Suicide Prevention Line, 988. Suicide is preventable. So don't wait, for your friend or buddy or, or teammate to reach out. You reach out to them. Have them call 988. You can make a difference. And then in the bottom, you'll see our contact information. Please visit our website, and how you can promote awareness. You can, please, you can go on our site and we'll send you you can order a flag, decals, whatever, to promote awareness. And in terms of legislation, I mentioned we do have pending legislation in the Congress right now. Actually, there was one congressional legislation which designated September 22nd, in fact, as Suicide Awareness and Remembrance Day for veterans. The reason why we picked September 22nd is because September, as most of you know, is Suicide Prevention Month. And 22 was the average. I think still, the average daily number of veterans who die by suicide fluctuates between 20 and 22. There's always, but that's why we picked the numbers, in 22, and and there's pending state legislation we have in several states right now because we're a national organization, affiliates, and we've been working with other groups like the American Suicide Prevention Foundation. So and the flag, by the way, if you look at the next one, it actually shows the symbol flag. If you look at the next, it explains to you. It's very similar to the POW flag, and I won't go into the detail as all the you can read it for yourself, okay, as to why it was designed. And it's important to have a flag as a symbol of observance, And our eventual goal is to see this, to see this flag, this symbol, become an official observance signal, a symbol that will fly, on government buildings and the White House, and to raise the public consciousness. And if you have any questions, please see me. And again, go to our website, sarflag.org. Get on our email list. We'll be happy to inform you and whatnot. And that's it. If you have any questions, I'll be around. I see so many of you from from my transit days. I look forward to speaking to all of you. And that's basically it. Thank you. Testing. Oh, wow.
It's on too. All right, thank you, Manny. As most of you know, suicide, veteran suicide, is one of our main goals, especially in our organization. It's something that's near and dear to every veteran's heart. I've lost. Right now, I've lost count. I mean, I just lost another Marine 2 weeks ago that died by suicide. Not something that we like to count, like to be proud of, or like to gloat on that number at all, because this Marine was a stellar Marine when I served with him. He had some of his best friends that we all served together. They talked to him the night before. The guy would call them for everything, and then just decided this one day that he had enough. You know, and that night he hung up the phone with his one guy that we knew, and unfortunately, the next day everybody got the news. So it's not something that we are. It's not a proud number that we like to hold to. We would like to stop it altogether. Through awareness, through the information that's provided within the VA, with the SAR flag organization, the National Suicide Hotline, and the month of September is a big month for us that we like to go out and push this information out to us. Again, what is a veteran is something I'm going to close with, you know, and for myself, you know, like I said, it's something that I hold near and dear to my heart. I grew up in a veteran household. All three of my children served. One is still serving on active duty right now in the Air Force. He's I think he's a crew chief now out in Arizona and in Phoenix, hottest place on earth, I believe. One of the hottest places on earth that he has to go out there and serve. He is started out in the fuel system maintenance on jets, and now he's morphed into being a crew chief. My daughter served as well. She was one of the only female crew chiefs within her squadron, so she served her time out, and my youngest just actually moved home. She's living with me now, and my youngest just got out, and he lives at home now he's actually trying to go into the Army National Guard, which is for a Marine, but you know, hey, as long as he continues to serve his country, I'm proud of each and every one of them. My father was a Marine during Vietnam. My cousin served during Desert Storm. My brother served alongside me in Iraq. My other uncle served throughout the 80s. He didn't go to Beirut, but it was during that time frame. So, and you know, my grandfather was in the Navy. I have cousins and uncles that all served in the Army. Daughter was Air Force as well. All three of my children went in the Air Force. They were a lot smarter than I was. So, but I wouldn't take back what I did, and if I can convince them again, you know, as long as they serve their country, I didn't care what branch other than the Army that they went into. That's just a little dig for my doggies out there. So, but no, we love all our brothers and sisters, regardless of what branch they served in. And I invite you all to come out and march alongside of us in the parade next week. It is on Monday, the 11th. We will be assembling around 23rd Street, right around the the Ironbound building, I think, is right there behind us. Yeah, right there at 23rd Street, and I forget what the park is right there, 5th Avenue. So we'll march up 5th Avenue to 48th Street. We'll have the 911 bus alongside behind us marching, along with the pipes and drums and the color guard in front of us. I know Nick is a volunteer with the parade, so he doesn't get to march with us. He just comes in and gives us some digs and stuff. But 1 o'clock assembly time. I don't know exactly what time we will be marching off. I know the parade ends at 3:30. Every year we're there, and we're there about 30 minutes to an hour max that we're standing there right next to Italy. So you got some good food that you can go in and grab while you're waiting with the bus. So if you do decide to join us, please come. The bus is there, so if you can't march, the bus is there for you to ride on. If you would like to jump on and off the bus, that is something that some people in the past have done. You could hop on, hop off the bus. We don't move that fast. The parade stops a lot for the intersections to cross over. So we do invite, if you're a veteran, family member, or just a MTA employee, you come out there and show your pride. There's no official uniform. If you are a veteran, we ask that you wear, veteran pride gear out there, your branch service. If you want to wear an MTA coat, that's fine. Come out. We'd like to make it keeps growing every year, make it a little bit larger and larger so that we can get a presence out there. Even though the national news likes to cut us off right as we go into the reviewing stand every year, it seems to be. Look, there's the bus. Poof, commercial. But eventually we'll get some airtime and produce what we're all about here at the MTA. Manny, you got something in the back?
Yeah, actually, before that, can we get a group photo of all the veterans?
Oh, we will.
Okay.
Right at the end, we'll take a nice picture and stuff. But we are out of time. Again, I want to thank everybody that's out there watching, everybody that came, the VA personnel who came to speak. I will put that information out there, and it is all available on. Is there a separate website for the New York Harbor, or is it all under the VA? Click on the links and stuff like that. So if you want to, don't wait on me to get that information out there. Please go and do it. The same with the SAR flag, Military Order Purple Heart, which I believe you have to be a Purple Heart recipient to join, correct?
You could be a Purple Heart recipient to be a member. We do have support groups, so if you have if you are a family member of a Purple Heart recipient, we'll take you in the dime. If you want to be a supporter of the organizations, no worries.
But there are many organizations out there, veterans groups, organizations to join. You know, Marine Corps League, you know, the Navy League. I don't know if the VFW, American Legion. You know, the those different groups that are out there. So please join something. If you're feeling any way that you are going to harm yourself, please reach out to somebody. That is a big thorn in our side, that, you know, the stigma that we have to deal with as veterans that we don't want to deal with. Please reach out. So that concludes our ceremony for today and for this year. Thank you. I hope to see you all out on Monday to march with us, alongside of us in the parade. Just wear comfortable shoes. Hopefully the weather's nice.